long before skyscrapers touched the sky and science promised humanity mastery over nature. There existed a powerful civilization carved directly into stone, a people who believed they were untouchable, a nation so advanced, so confident in their strength, that they laughed at the idea of divine accountability. And this is not a myth, not folklore, but a true story, recorded in the Quran, the story of Thamud and their prophet Hazrat Ali, peace be upon him, a man sent not with armies or weapons but with truth, patience, and a warning that history would never forget. Thamud lived after the people of D, inhabiting a land of mountains which they carved into magnificent homes, mastering architecture in ways that astonish historians even today, and this mastery fed their arrogance. Because when humans conquer stone, they begin to believe they have conquered destiny itself, and into this society, Allah sent Kli, one of their own, a man they trusted before he spoke of God, a man who lived among them honestly, until he delivered a message they did not want to hear, that their power was temporary, that their strength was borrowed, and that they were accountable to one greater than themselves. Kli called them gently, reminding them that Allah alone created them, that blessings were not proof of divine approval but tests of character, and for a moment, something remarkable happened. They listened, not because they believed yet, but because curiosity had not completely died, and that curiosity turned into a demand, because arrogance never asks for guidance, it demands proof. And they said to Kli, if you are truly sent by your Lord, then bring us a sign. Not any sign, but one that bends nature itself to our will. And this is where the story crosses from human debate into divine intervention, because Allah responded to their challenge not with thunder or fire, but with something so precise, so impossible, that even the hardest skeptic would struggle to explain it away. A she-camel emerged alive from solid rock, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but physically, breathing, walking, living, exactly as they demanded, a miracle described clearly in the Quran, a sign so undeniable that even their leaders were stunned into silence. And Kli told them plainly, this camel is not property, not entertainment, not a test of curiosity, but a sign from Allah, and its rights were sacred. One day, the camel would drink from the town's water, and one day the people would drink, a balance decreed by God Himself. And here lies the most frightening part of the story, because miracles do not soften arrogant hearts, they expose them. Instead of humility, resentment grew, because arrogance cannot tolerate limits, especially limits imposed by God, and slowly, quietly, mockery replaced awe, whispers turned into jokes, jokes turned into resentment, and resentment turned into conspiracy, because when humans reject truth, they do not do so loudly at first, they poison it quietly, and despite knowing this camel was no ordinary animal, despite witnessing the impossible with their own eyes, they convinced themselves that power mattered more than obedience, and a small group among them plotted what they thought would prove their superiority once and for all. They slaughtered the she-camel, an act not of hunger, but of rebellion, a deliberate message sent to heaven itself. We fear nothing, and when Kli learned what they had done, his tone changed, not to anger, but to finality, because prophets do not threaten, they warn. And he told them calmly, enjoy yourselves in your homes for 3 days. Then the promise of Allah will come. And even then, they laughed, because arrogance hears warnings as weakness. And here is where the earth itself enters the story, not as scenery, but as a witness, because the Quran tells us that after those 3 days, a mighty blast, a violent trembling, seized them suddenly, and in one moment, the same earth they carved for protection became their grave, their stone homes offering no shelter, their strength no escape, their mocking laughter silenced forever. And the Quran describes them left lifeless, collapsed in their dwellings, as if they had never existed at all. And this is where modern minds often flinch. Because we want explanations that remove accountability, we want geology without meaning, disaster without consequence, but the Quran does not present this as coincidence, it presents it as a response to deliberate defiance, a line crossed knowingly. Because this was not disbelief born of ignorance, it was rebellion born of arrogance, and that distinction matters deeply. Because the story of Kli is not about punishment alone, it is about how power corrupts humility, how civilizations fall not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack restraint, and how mockery of the sacred always begins with confidence and ends with collapse. And the trembling of the earth here is not just a physical event. It is a moral statement etched into history, a reminder that nature itself operates under laws set by Allah, not humanity. And what makes this story unsettling is how modern it feels, because today we carve deeper, build higher, control more, and mock ancient warnings with a smile, believing ourselves wiser than those who came before us. Yet, Thamud believed the same thing, and they were wrong. And this is why the Quran repeats their story, not for entertainment, but as a mirror. Because the camel was not the test, obedience was. And the earthquake was not the tragedy, arrogance was. And as Glee turned away from the ruins of his people, grieving not in victory but in sorrow, the Quran leaves us with a question that echoes across centuries. How many signs does humanity need before it stops mocking what it does not control? And this is where Man vs. Religion becomes more than a channel title. Because this is not God versus humans, it is humans versus their own ego. And the story of Hasarat Kli reminds us that the most dangerous disbelief is not denial, but defiance, not doubt, but mockery. Because doubt can ask, but mockery has already decided. And when the earth trembled, it was not random chaos, it was the final sentence in a conversation humanity refused to finish, and that is why this story is not ancient history, it is a warning still vibrating beneath our feet.